News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and
George.
All right, welcome back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com podcast. And it is disaster averted. Got it turned down. It's been a disastrous day for Josh McQuistion. Has had all kinds of car issues. He's going to be joining us here hopefully soon. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk about as soon as we get ready to head to Columbia, Missouri. George was on the teleconference earlier today and continues to hound Brent Venables about the injury status of Jalil Farooq, which let's start there real quick before we get into Brent. Welcome, Eddie Radosevich. Welcome, George Stoy.
Hello.
Josh McQuistion, soon to be joining us.
Congratulations to President-elect Donald Trump. I just wanted to offer congratulations on behalf of the unofficial 40.
I'm sure that's all that you have to offer.
There's a lot more today.
It's fun to stay at the YMCA.
Do you know Lee Greenwood has a Canadian version of...
Yeah, that's how it was originally wrote, I believe.
I'm trying to think of I can't even get the song to play in my head.
And I'm
now.
proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm from.
Well, he says, I'm proud to be in Canada.
I don't think anybody's been proud to ever be in Canada.
He doesn't say he's a Canadian. He just says he's proud to be in Canada.
Never been to Canada. I look forward to going someday. I've heard Montreal is awesome. I've had buddies that have had bachelor parties in Canada.
I went to Niagara Falls in
Montreal.
Canada on that side, and I also went to Edmonton for the Stanley Cup playoffs when I covered hockey.
We covered the Avalanche?
Yep.
I've been to Edmond,
Canada? Yeah.
No, Edmond, Oklahoma.
Oh.
That's the only Edmonton.
It's not a very exotic location if you're from here, but anyway.
It's not bad.
I got that Eddie's restaurant up there, right?
Yeah, there's a couple around town. A couple in Oklahoma City now.
I thought Dana White was going to shout out the Sooner Scoop podcast last night.
Didn't get it. Didn't get the shout out. I know the Bussin' with the Boys did, though. Happy for them.
The Nelk Boys.
Nelk Boys. That
Joe
we should have
Rogan.
been third on the list.
We got to work on getting Dana White on more often, I guess. Anyway, welcome everybody. It is we are barreling towards a potential bowl eligibility situation in Columbia, Missouri, where George. Let's just start out with this. It seems like Jalil Farooq is the most likely to play on Saturday. I mean, it could be both. It could be he and Deion Burks, but if you're putting out Vegas odds, is he like 3-1 and maybe Burks is maybe like 5-1?
It's tough because I think some of it's I'm just more connected with Farooq, and I know a little bit more about
Spiritually?
yeah. But I just know a little bit more about his injury, and when you look at the time frame of his return, Missouri was always the goal, and with a broken foot, it's a little bit. I don't know if easy is the right word because obviously he was out 6 to 8 weeks, or I think this is week 9 now since his surgery. But in terms of a foot injury and coming back from it and rehab, it just makes more sense. Whereas Burks dealing with a quad, soft tissue injuries are really tricky sometimes in terms of getting back and trying not to re-aggravate it. We saw that obviously with Nick Anderson earlier in the season. Deion also re-aggravated his a couple weeks ago now, so it's harder to say. But it does seem like when asking
with
Brent
Farooq,
about
it's
it,
a bone. I mean,
yes, yeah, it's a different healing process.
Yeah.
So, but asking Brent about it, it certainly sounds like they're hopeful. I also know Jalil has some family members, trying to attend this game. And I don't think that they would try to attend this game if they didn't think he had a chance of playing. So I think it's one of those things. He's going to be questionable on the availability report tonight. Deion Burks is going to be questionable on the availability report tonight, I would assume, as well as several of the offensive linemen. We're really just not going to know until these guys go through warm-ups, and even then we won't know until the ball is like actually snapped, because we've seen guys go through warm-ups and then not play.
Couple things. I've been remiss to mention that the Unofficial 40 is presented by the Schwab Meat Company, the official champion of the holidays. They got a new Friendsgiving NIL partnership that we're going to unveil here today. We had Billy Bowman and Kobe McKenzie and Jada Coleman and Kobe and Kenzie Hansen come over to the studios, cut a little spot, and we're going to play that for you coming up in just a little bit. But Schwab Meat, schwabmeat.com. Go check them out. The holidays are upcoming. We're going to tell you all about the special that they've got going there as well. I mean, as you know, as far as the family traveling out, as you two have taught me, you can always get those flights refunded unless you just don't get on a flight that leaves anyway.
It's like I told George, too. I mean, who knows? Maybe this is something that has been in the works where they're friends with the Weiss family. Coming back from their times at Oklahoma, and maybe just this was going to be some type of reunion. So, I don't know. It does feel like, though, that Jalil is headed towards playing again at some point this season. It's either going to be this week or next week, or 2 weeks from now against Alabama.
Yeah, if he doesn't play this week, I would be shocked if he didn't play against Alabama. And, look, Jackson kind of tipped their hand last night, Jackson Arnold.
I think that was kind of like the eye-opening, like, okay, wait, what did I just hear from Jackson Arnold on Tuesday night when we talked to him? And he basically said, like, I'm paraphrasing, but it was, it was like, damn, we're going to get two of these guys back. They're dudes.
Yes, yeah. And so, I think that OU's very hopeful that they'll be back. But again, we have to see how the week plays out. And again, I don't want to sit here and say one way or the other, because we've seen it go different ways this year, and we just never know.
Sure. I think that at the end of the day, though, you go up to Columbia, and this is the first time in a while that it feels like, and I know that, we don't have to put out the statement again, but coming out of the main game, it does feel like maybe they can build a little momentum going into Columbia. And if you could get to 6-4, win the football game on Saturday, and go into the bye week with Alabama coming into town in 2 weeks, what a world of a difference that would be from where we were when we were talking about the disaster that was the South Carolina game.
I've reached a point, guys, where I've gone from...
Or even the Ole Miss game, really.
This has gone from a winnable game, a very winnable game, to a game that I think OU should win.
Sure.
Especially if Brady Cook is not playing. That's the way I feel about it.
And it's going to be interesting to see, as much as we're going to look at the Oklahoma availability report tonight, it'll be interesting just to kind of see what the situation is with Brady Cook and what he's listed
other guys
at.
out. Their running back, I believe, is banged up. They've got several offensive linemen who have been injured. So it's not just Oklahoma that's going to have a lengthy availability report tonight.
Well, as I'm looking at it now, the Sooners anywhere from a 2.5 to a 3-point favorite. So that has flipped over this week since the start of it. And you got to think, Vegas is banking on the fact that Drew Pine is going to be the starter in this game and not Brady Cook. But it's not like Brady Cook has been a world beater. He did get hurt and come back in the Auburn game and led them back to victory, but that was a game it was pretty close. It looked like a large portion of that game they were going to lose it. By the way, what do you mean by issuing another statement, Eddie? Did I miss your statement along with Mike Gundy's last night during the election coverage?
No, I support Mike Gundy. I think he was right.
And we won't delve any further into that. Josh McQuistion is here.
I'm just kidding.
To save us.
You can't say that. You can't say what Mike Gundy said. Especially when your football team is not good.
Josh has just covered up the microphone. Yeah,
I think he was cleaning the something.
Sure, what was going on there? Josh, welcome in. You haven't missed much. I know you've had a rough day so far. Apparently you buy crappy cars. Is that what the problem is?
No. That is the biggest problem, is that it's not crappy cars. And I just got done paying my bill and I was reminded of how not crappy that car is, and that kind of pisses me off. It's been a day. Yeah, a dead car at 6 a.m. Had to take Tiffany to work, had to get the girls to school, and then have had 4 different technicians look at the car in the last 4 hours. So it's been a day, but it is up and running again. So that's exciting. But I really, more than anything, I was upset that I missed what I'm sure was some fire election coverage from the Sooner Scoop pod here.
Josh, all I said was I offered a hearty congratulations to the president-elect. And I would have done the same if it would have gone the other way last night. I believe in democracy.
I don't disagree with that.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop here. He didn't do it the first time. He's been offered a second opportunity.
I have nothing else to say. I woke up today knowing that my life didn't change one way or the other. That's my true, honest political take.
That's kind of how I feel about it.
Am I happy about how it went? Yes, a little bit. I think it's kind of fun.
If your life does change, then you might be one of those people that Mike Gundy's talking about.
Well, or you just need to get help.
Yeah.
I think for a majority of our listeners and the majority of people that I know in my circles, we're thankful enough to probably not be affected either way.
Look, and I get it. Like the whole thing, it's a sport to people. Like when you look at
it's
X,
a really bad sport. Though.
It's like a sporting event for people. It's like they're cheering for one side or the other, and it's like we do this for a living. Like we cover sports, and we see OU fans interact with Texas fans, and I mean this week Missouri fans, and like. And On3's always tagging us in recruiting stuff, and it just turns into this big, massive pile of people fighting with each other. Like the liberals are fighting with the conservatives, and the conservatives. It's just like sports. I don't really get bent out of shape over any of it, and that's why we people do, and that's why we don't let people do that on the message board.
But I think it's fun.
I'll admit it. There's some accounts that I follow. And just some of the reaction meltdowns is kind of fun.
They're great.
Yeah.
They're absolutely great. It's awesome. It's funny.
I just can't imagine the people that like live and die with this stuff.
That's
like,
right.
You're right. It's the shittiest sporting event in the world is basically what it is. Like, it's awful.
And to be honest, I don't think my life, other than maybe paying a little bit more in taxes here or there, or, prices being higher here or there, it's not really going to... if somebody drags us into a world war, obviously that's very bad, which is a possibility with one guy.
Not really.
Disavow. I had nothing to do with that.
I feel better about the situation. I'll put it that way.
I don't think we're getting dragged into a world war. No. But anyway, yeah. I just don't. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't. I don't worry about that stuff.
So back to Jalil Farooq.
Have we not exhausted the Jalil Farooq discussion, or is that just your safety net?
Just trying to get us back on OU football.
I was ready to talk to OU football from the beginning.
Jackson Arnold last night. By the way,
truly, this is the biggest game of Brent Venables' career.
It is. And before we get to that, Josh's technicians, I'm sure, had good eyesight, but Josh did not have LASIK. Would not have helped you diagnose your battery issue in your cars. I would have to. See, he's putting on his glasses. You need LASIK, Josh. You need LASIK.
You could have maybe seen it coming, though, and all you had to do was go to Enjoy Vision, which is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City, not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the unofficial 40 listener is giving $400 off LASIK. All you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter NJOY withme.com, and use the promo code U40 if you are so inclined to getting interested in the LASIK operation. $400 off. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
All right, but no, you're exactly right, Eddie. This is the biggest game of Brent Venables' career, and really the biggest game I think Oklahoma has played since the Sugar Bowl against Georgia for the program.
I guess I haven't really thought about it like that, but I do think like just getting to 6-4 and getting bowl eligible the last 2 weeks. And maybe because the bye week is coming up as well, it just would, from a trajectory standpoint, it would feel like it would be massive to walk out of there with a win.
I mean, it changes everything if they just go down and get a win with all this shit talking that's happened in the offseason between Missouri and Oklahoma fans and the Caden Green stuff. And no one was ever torn up that much about the Theo Wee stuff, but just the Williamson and Wary and all the recruiting battles and the NIL stuff and how OU fans looked at Missouri's NIL it drove them crazy because they felt like OU wasn't doing enough. And then, the Dominic Williams stuff happens, and then people finally start feeling good about NIL. Like, Missouri's been the cause of a lot of headaches throughout the offseason for Oklahoma and for us and for the fans, just because it stirred so much shit up. If they went to Missouri and got a win here, it would be a little. I think it would be a little bit of that swagger that OU fans have lost. That they feel like, okay, we're still Oklahoma to some extent.
I agree that, like, I mean, this.
I think it could be any opponent.
I agree.
I don't think it's just Missouri. I think it's more about getting to that bowl eligibility to a certain extent.
And this being their best opportunity.
Now, would it be a cherry on top for somebody that wants to drag somebody through the Twitter mud? Yeah, of course. But I don't know if it's more so about beating Missouri as it is just getting another win, adding to the resume of what this year is and trying to turn it in from what has been a complete disaster into something that at least you go, okay, well, Jackson came back. He started playing better football. They started moving the football on the offensive side. Who knows what's going to happen with offense coordinator, but you're at least taking steps in a positive direction into what is going to be a very, very important offseason in December for Brent Venables and staff.
My whole thing with this game is how much luster gets lost that they're not beating Brady Cook. If that's the way this goes down, that's certainly what Vegas is telling us. Like, I know for OU that doesn't matter, but as you project what that means, like what that tells you about where this team is, like I don't know how I feel about that. Like I beating Brady Cook, okay, great, good, that's a good win. Drew Pine is legitimately terrible. I don't know. Like, I don't know
at
how
the same time, this is,
with all the injuries that OU's had, I take it.
Here's the thing, Josh. I agree with you that it wouldn't be as good of a win. But if you can go on the road in the SEC and the way that this team has played this year at times,
right,
you take that son of a bitch and you get the hell out of there.
It's karma.
Couldn't agree more.
The world giving you back
absolutely
something.
take it. I just wonder about perception.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter at this
so
point.
bad what perception is. Like,
just
perception.
Just get bowl eligible. That's all that matters. I mean, the perception is not going to improve even if Brady Cook is the starter in this game. The perception will be, well, that's Missouri really is further off than we thought.
Now, Josh, I do think that if Brady Cook doesn't play, the expectation should be to go out and win by like 2 scores, right? Go win by,
I don't know
10
about 2 scores, but maybe win solidly by 1 touchdown. Like,
sure.
Win by 7 solid.
Make it
like
feel like
27-17 or something.
Yeah, you walk out of there saying OU was in control.
Right.
They were in control of that game.
It definitely makes you think, like, if you can get through this week, and I think it just getting into the bye week at 6-4 would be a world of difference from what we were talking about maybe after the post game, in Oxford or certainly in South Carolina when we were talking about, are they going to win another game? Like, are they going to have to fire Brent at the end of the year? I think those conversations would certainly be put to the side. And then who knows? Like, if you could win and play well and build confidence this week, because I think a little bit of the run game has just simply been guys being able to go out and execute and say, okay, maybe we can do this. Who knows what happens in 2 weeks against Alabama? If you could, like, hypothetically, like, this is obviously glass half full, but if you could get to 7-4, I mean, my God, what a turnaround that would be from where this thing was a couple weeks ago.
I mean, even if you win 2 of these last 3 and you get to 7-5 to finish the season,
it'd be. I mean, I can't believe that we're talking like this, but it'd be
insane.
fantastic.
I think, Eddie, I don't know that I can keep up with this roller coaster of you right now. Like, I was here a week ago.
I know. I feel like just going out and beating an FCS team like they did has given me at least a little bit of, okay, maybe this wasn't as broken. And this is the other side of it, too, where you start looking at, okay, well, South Carolina kind of did kick the shit out of A&M. Tennessee's really good up front. Like, you start going down the schedule, it's like, maybe it was, like, very, very tough. And that's not to say OU hasn't been shit at times, too. Like, it's not – and I think that, like, offensively, you are going to have a little bit of a get back to reality moment this week against Missouri.
You're going to realize that the offensive line still sucks a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
but maybe
it's not going to look like it was against Maine
that you can find.
Yeah,
like,
but I mean, Jackson Arnold is going to get sacked. You're going to have moments where you're just like, Logan Hallen, what the hell are you doing?
Sure,
that's going to happen. But it's like, can you minimize the amount of times that happens? That's the thing. And like, I was looking, I saw SEC Mike posting all the efficiency rankings today, and I mean, it's promising for Oklahoma to go in there. If the offense can play at a little bit better level, and I asked Eli Bowen about this last night. He really didn't, budge a whole lot on it. They're trying to keep the united front. If it doesn't matter what our offense does, we have to play better on defense. But like you give them a little bit. Like Oklahoma is number 4, second in the SEC, but number 4 nationally in defensive rushing efficiency. That's entering this week. Tennessee is number 1 and number 1 in the SEC. Ole Miss is number 6. Texas is number 7. And so that's 1 is Tennessee, 2 Oklahoma, 3 Ole Miss, 4 Texas in the SEC. That's rushing efficiency. Now you can look at passing efficiency, which you would think, OU really hasn't done all that well there. But they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th in the SEC and 42nd overall in the country in defensive passing efficiency. So, I mean, with Drew Pine as the starter, they don't have a running game. They don't have a good quarterback. I mean, you got to think OU's defense. This has to be the game where you flirt with a shutout in the SEC.
Well, the biggest thing for OU defensively is just going to be how many explosive plays can Missouri hit on, and how many plays can.
And you know who's going to have that
send
play
down Luther Burden. Like they're going to put the ball in Luther Burden's hands about as many different ways as possible, whether it be the quick stuff or downfield taking shots.
And you got to bracket him the entire game. Josh, you got to bracket him the entire game. I mean, you have to have somebody over the top of Luther Burden the entire game. Whatever happens the rest of it, let Theo Weiss have 10 catches. Who cares? Do not let Luther Burden, and I think that's been I haven't watched a lot of how people have been defending him this year, but I know that's the idiot's guide to defending a great receiver.
You're to the point with them that you're just anybody else beat us. Somebody else beat us. We're not going to let you beat us. And that's because Luther Burden is capable of putting Oklahoma's lights out. There's no doubt about it. He is that dangerous. He's that good. And they can use him in so many different ways. He's not a guy that it's got to be vertical or it's got to be this. Like do whatever you want. He's that good. Now, he hasn't had a great year, and I don't think they've done a very good job this year really identifying. I mean, you look at his yards per catch, it's like 11-3. Luther Burden should be doing a lot more than that. That's crazy.
40 for 450 is what he has this year. He's not. He technically isn't even. He hasn't had the most yards. Theo Weiss has 37 for 482.
And I mean, Theo is a good player. Theo has done more at Missouri than I thought he would. Like I want to be honest about that. At the same time, are you like terrified of Theo Weiss hitting you for like 10 for 160? No, Luther Burden can 100% do that and change the entire course of the game.
Oklahoma, I think, and this is very obvious to say, the defense has to force a couple turnovers in this game. Like it feels like this is a Missouri offense that I think is very vulnerable in that area, especially if Drew Pine is the quarterback or even Brady Cook, because even if Brady Cook plays with a hand or wrist injury, I would assume he's not able to throw the ball as well as he typically can, and he's going to be a little bit protective of that. So you've got to be able to force some turnovers, and that's something Oklahoma's defense has not done the last few weeks.
I think it's not been good.
It's only, 1 turnover in the last 3 games?
Yeah.
2 in the last 4?
Robert Spears-Jennings basically just sunning somebody for a football. It wasn't
against Maine. So it's like you gotta come up with a couple. And then on the other side, Jackson has got to hold on to the ball. He's done a really good job since he was benched, since he's come back. He's done a really good job of not turning the ball over. That has to continue this week. You cannot give Missouri an offense that has also been struggling this year, short fields or the defense, a defensive touchdown, things like that. And then special teams. I feel like we haven't talked about special teams a lot recently because it hasn't come up. But this could be
good.
Right.
Which is a good thing.
This could be a huge game for Zach Schmidt.
Well, and you also saw Peyton Bowen get a little bit loose. I mean, almost had a huge punt return call back for a penalty. I want to get back to that some more, but Schwab Meat, the official champion of the holidays. They're making Friendsgiving more fun with another NIL partnership for the holiday season, starring a bunch of your favorite Sooners, Billy Bowman, Jada Coleman, Kobe McKenzie, and Kinsey Hansen, taking competitiveness to a new level at the Friendsgiving table, playing the MIL game, the Meat, Image, and Likeness game.
Let's listen in on Friendsgiving dinner. They're playing the Schwab MIL game.
Meat, image, likeness. Kinsey, go.
Billy Bowman, ham? Billy Bo Ham Man.
Kobe McKenzie, turkey. Kobe Turk.
Yeah.
McKenzie.
Jada Coleman, ham. Jada Cole Ham Man.
Kinsey Hansen, Turk Inzi Hammonson. Turkinsey Hammonson, 2 meats.
Turkinsey Hammonson, MVP of the meal.
Schwab meats, turkeys, and champions of the holidays.
By the way, they all came in studio to do that commercial, and Kinsey Hansen, did you see her dog?
Yeah, very cute dog.
The cutest dog ever. I asked Kobe yesterday after practice like how the puppy was doing. He said it's gotten huge, which kind of saddens me.
Well, that's what happens with dogs, and then they also die. Ben.
Not a dog owner, apparently.
I love Ben. I think it's sad.
It is sad.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Did he? Have we heard a verdict on that? Like I read that he was.
I think
going
he's
for
just
testing
fighting right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, losing, yeah. I mean, if you haven't read his update, yeah. Anyway, buy Schwab meat products online at schwabmeat.com. Obviously, for the holidays, their turkeys and hams are online at schwabmeat.com. You can pick up your order at Schwab's in downtown OKC or ship straight to your home with free shipping on online orders over $75 with the code SoonerScoop. That again, go to schwabmeat.com, place your order over $75. You get free online shipping with that our special code SoonerScoop. And don't forget, you can also get Schwab products online at schwabmeat.com or at OnQ, 7-Eleven, Love's Travel Stops, and coming soon to Quick Trip Roller Grills, Mr. George Stoya.
I love me some roller grills at Quick Trip.
Yeah, I know. It's the most defining thing about your character, maybe.
The hot dogs there are good. The taquitos are great.
It's amazing they don't sponsor anything as much free advertising as you give them.
I know.
Anyway,
hit me up in my DMs.
They're good guys. We like those guys. By the way, I want to take a moment just to say, our thoughts and prayers and condolences to the Loves family. I don't know if you guys have ever had many run-ins with Judy Love. Everybody remembers her from going after LeBron. She was always sitting right there, right by the scorer's table at Thunder games, and. Tom passed away not too long ago as well, and I had more run-ins with Tom, but just one of the most, billionaires, but you would never know it. I mean, the most down-to-earth people, and, it's really rubbed off on their family, too, because, all the people in the Loves family, of course, Gabe married to Caroline, so I've got to know her pretty well over the years, but Frank and all you guys, just wishing you guys the best after the loss of Judy, and it's you've had Dee Dee Stoops we've lost in the last couple of weeks, and now Judy Love, so it's been a tough time on people, but hopefully people can rally and you feel the love and everything gets better with time. So anyway, back to Missouri, Oklahoma. How about, we've got 7 o'clock tonight. It's Wednesday, 7 o'clock tonight. You'll have the injury report come out. Any predictions on offensive line, George?
I bet they're all questionable, except for I think Sexton would probably be ruled out, but Tarquin, it's an ankle injury that I just don't know. I don't know, Eddie, do you know anything?
No, I have no idea. I think your guess is as good as mine right now. It certainly would be helpful if somebody like a Michael Tarquin could go on Saturday. I know that he was wearing the boot last week, had the ankle injury. I just don't know how how serious was it? Was it a situation of
it's definitely not as bad as Branson Hickman's.
Okay.
Remember when Branson Hickman went down early in the season?
I think that's a good positive sign. In knowing that it wasn't a high ankle sprain, I almost go, okay, maybe he could start at right tackle for you on Saturday.
Ankle sprains are all about just staying off of it.
Sure.
You got to ice it, stay off it. I'm sure they can shoot him up a little bit, but
I guess the good news, quote unquote, good news is what would he be 8 days out because he did it on Tuesday of last week. I don't know. Maybe you can get him to go on. He would be the only one. I really don't know about Jake Taylor. I'm like you. I don't think that Jacob Sexton will be available. I don't think he's going to be available the rest of the season. Maybe a bowl game, depending on when that was, but I would even still say that's probably
it'd probably be precautionary on that. Jake Taylor's an interesting one because he's dealing with a couple different injuries, and so it's really tough to say he would be ready. I don't know, Josh. What would you think if they had to start Spencer Brown at right tackle?
I think Bauer Sharp would be lined up a lot on the right side of Oklahoma's offensive line. It would be the first thing I can come up with. Guys, he's not good. Like a lot of guys you're seeing like Heath Ozida. I thought he really took a step forward. I think he's been better the last few weeks. Logan Howland was miles better, and it's Maine. We get it. Like we preface everything with that, but he was better. I think Troy Everett's starting to come around a little bit, but Spencer Brown looks like the same problems that existed. It's just he's so inconsistent. He'll have one play where you're like, okay, do that every snap, and OU's fine. And then the next play, he'll do something just inexplicable for a guy of his experience. So it's hard to – I mean, to me, Oklahoma's almost got to be like, whether it's Taylor, whether it's Tarquin, whoever it is, man, if you can give it a go, we really need you. Like, we really need you to give this a run if it's at all possible.
Would you guys be interested in it all? This is just pure speculation. Don't know if they would ever do this. But I wonder if they could, if they knew that Tarquin couldn't give it a go, if they would maybe give Wee Woo some reps at right tackle and Pierre Louis at right guard. Wee Woo's played right tackle before.
I would be intrigued by that if it was August.
Yes.
Can you – that would be a question of, has he even repped right tackle? And I know that you're just asking hypothetically.
Yeah.
Has he even repped right tackle at any point?
It just reminds me of what year was it that they bumped Tyrese Robinson out to right tackle?
That was for the bowl game, though, wasn't it? And they had a month to prepare.
I thought he played some right tackle during the season.
Did he? I don't remember.
He did.
Do you remember, Josh?
Yeah. Was that 16?
No, it was more recent than that, right? It was like 20.
Yeah, you're right. He was the 17. You're right. He was 17 class. So that would have been
2019?
19, maybe.
Something like that. But that's what made me think of it.
I do think it was the Jalen Hurts year. I think that's right.
It just made me think of like.
Speaking of, he was
maybe some different options.
Signed off the Vikings practice squad yesterday.
Nice. Because I was just like, I know Wee Woo played a few games at right tackle at North Texas. So, and if you wanted to get Pierre Louis in there,
I guess my question would be, why didn't they do this a month
earlier?
If you knew that you needed help at right tackle, why didn't you do this a month ago?
Did. But I will say though, in their defense, they haven't really that's one position they were somewhat healthy. Sexton and Tarquin and Taylor were all healthy there for a good chunk of time.
That's fair.
But the issue though that you run into is Autry Dent's your next guy up, and as much as maybe we like the potential of Isaiah Autry Dent, he wasn't even in the conversation a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he was literally on practice squad.
And he had been hurt for the first half of the season.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. It will be interesting to see what happens on Wednesday night with the release of the availability report. It does seem, though, like, I don't know. From an offensive line standpoint, Josh, what have they done? And I know that we talked about this a little bit in the Game Day Rewind on Monday that you can view on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. How much of it is real in terms of the run game with Javonte Barnes, and even with Barnes and what he's been able to do out of the backfield the past couple weeks with Joe John Finley? It seems like that's been a teaching point, talking point, whatever you want to call it, a point of emphasis for Joe John Finley to get the ball into Javonte Barnes' hands and just let him do something.
Well, I mean, first of all, and I don't want to put this all on Luttrell, because I thought they did it really the first 2 years under Lebby, where it was like this willful intention. We're not going to run counter. We're not going to do that. Like, I don't understand why. I don't understand why that's not a staple of this offense, because when you look, and I don't know if it's just because Bill is so comfortable coaching that or what it is, but the cleanest Oklahoma looks run blocking is when they're running counter. Like, they look like, okay, they know where this guy's going. This linebacker's coming here. I'm going to pick him up. We're going to kick this guy. Like, it all looks like it makes sense. It may not always be perfectly blocked, but everybody's generally headed to where they should be. And then some of this stuff with this inside zone and some of these other things that they do run, you're like, they don't know where they're going half the time. Like, it just, and I mean, I think it's gotten better over the last few weeks, and it has been improved, and maybe that is connected to, the coaching change or the shakeup or whatever. But to me, I think it's been more about Oklahoma going back to that, and then off of that, they're using some of those RPO looks that, and they'll use God, heaven help me if they use that right guard pull where they show the counter with Fabechi Nwiwu and let him try to pick up an end again. They've got to throw that. They've got to burn that play somewhere. Like, all it does is create problems on almost every snap I see it. But I think it's allowing them to open some things up in the passing game, which, again, it's all cyclical. You get those guys to back off even a step, okay, you've got a little more room for Javonte Barnes to work, and everything's a little bit quicker as far as how a defense has to respond to you. So I don't know that there's been any huge change like that people couldn't pretty easily see, but I do think they have taken out some stuff that just wasn't working. And, guys, I will say a big part of it that's not getting any credit, Bauer Sharp on zone insert, all of a sudden he's killing people. Like, I know people be like, it was Maine. He did it against Ole Miss. He had a couple of hits where you're like, that's what I want my tight end doing every time on zone insert.
Josh, how good is Missouri's defensive line? Because I think, again, the offensive line has not been good this year, but I do think that sometimes we forget how good of defensive lines they've had to face this season. When you look at Ole Miss and South Carolina, Texas, Tennessee, I don't think Missouri's in. This is a solid group. Don't get me wrong, I think. But they don't have one of those guys like some of these other defensive lines that OU's faced, right?
Absolutely not. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is a really good, solid group. And I think last time we talked about this, George, I think I kind of compared it to like Texas, where you're not like, oh, there's not a Tavondre Sweat and a Byron Murphy in the middle, but it's all good players across the board. I mean, these are good SEC level guys. But there's not that guy that you're like, oh, God, that's a problem. Like South Carolina's ends or, James Pierce at Tennessee. Some of these guys that Oklahoma has seen, Walter Nolan at Ole Miss or Mullane. You go down that list and you're like, these are all top, first, second day pick kind of guys. That's not where I see Missouri's guys, but they're good. I mean, they're definitely a dangerous team. The guy I would say, if anybody sticks out to me, it's probably the Christian Williams kid inside. I think he's a good player. But again, if you're talking about matchups and what Oklahoma can deal with, I'd much rather Oklahoma have to deal with a problem from the inside than the outside. The edges are where Oklahoma's going to get cooked if things aren't just right. The inside, you can mask that up a little bit because, again, I don't think this guy is Walter Nolan, and I thought Oklahoma did a really nice job with Walter Nolan before he got hurt. So I think this is a thing they can manage, and if they can build off what they, take Maine out of it. Just talk about what they did in that first half against Ole Miss, and that's something I wanted to ask you guys. Oklahoma comes out offensively and plays this game like they played against Ole Miss, who I think is a better defense than Missouri. I think Oklahoma wins this game by 2 touchdowns. Like, I think that's in the cards for them to do. But again, like we've talked about all year, they've got to get out of their own way.
How many points do you think OU needs to score in this game to win? Like, what point total, if I gave you, let's say I gave you 21 points, would you feel good about OU winning this game?
I'd say 24, and I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think so, too.
That's about where I would be. Yep.
I think the final score is going to be somewhere around that 27-20, 31-24, something like that. And depending on who wins the turnover battle, you go back to all the cliche lines, but turnover battle, special teams. Special teams is something that we never talk about, obviously, and you said that a minute ago, George, but I was just looking at Missouri's kicker, Blake Craig. Not been great this year. 15 to 23, 65.2%.
He can kick from deep, though, right? Like, he's got a cannon.
He's 4 for 7 from 50 plus.
Damn. That's
oddly enough, 1 for 5 in between 40 and 49. I don't know how you explain that.
What is Zach Schmidt's numbers this year? I feel like he hasn't even really kicked that many field goals.
Well, he hasn't. I mean, outside of, let me see.
OU hasn't kicked a lot of field goals.
Sure. Overall. I mean, when they haven't been in the red zone very often.
True.
But when they have, they've actually ended up scoring. Zach Schmidt, what do you think he is?
Probably like, I'm trying to think of how many.
This is kind of a fun question.
He missed one at. Is he 3 for 3?
He's 4 for 4.
4 for 4.
4 for 4. 2 for 2 from 20 to 29, 30 for or 1 for 1 from 30 to 39, and 1 for 1, 40 to 49.
When did he make the 40-yard?
7 for 9.
When did he make the 40-plus yarder? I don't remember.
44-yarder against
Texas?
No, it was...
No, Keltner missed against Texas.
Now I'm kind of questioning myself.
Auburn was it was a 30-something yarder, I believe.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. Internet's being slow. Where are we? Stats. This is good.
Was it Houston?
Good podcasting is what this is. He is. That's one for one. I was looking at his South Carolina made the 44-yarder to get him on the board.
I don't remember that
to get him on the board when it was 21-0, I believe.
Okay, I don't remember.
Let's be honest. We all blacked out South Carolina as much as humanly possible.
I stopped watching.
Yeah. There's no problem with that. But yeah, I mean, I think that you're probably talking about in between 24 and 30 points. And you feel pretty confident that Oklahoma can slow them down.
And again, it depends on who's playing quarterback.
I'm certainly, 100%. I'm just really interested too, and I'm going to be kind of excited to talk to Eli Hoff on Thursday for the game day preview. Just like what the tone is from the Missouri fans, just in general, like what kind of atmosphere it's going to be. I would expect it to be pretty good because, we were joking the other day, Josh, over here in the office that, as much as like we look at this Missouri team and think that it's a winnable game for Oklahoma, they still technically have a lot to play for. They're only 6-2 right now. It's not like it's like I think that the way that we have talked about Missouri and the way that people have talked about Missouri this year would make you think that they're like 3-3 or 2-4, when in reality they have a lot to play for right now at 6-2. You could, if you're a Missouri fan, I'm sure, talking about running the table and trying to put yourself into some type of playoff contention.
And they ranked him 24th last night on the
playoff show.
Yeah, which makes that they still respect him.
They have a lot, I guess, technically a lot in front of them if they were able to get through this weekend, and obviously navigating some quarterback injuries.
Well, look what's in front of them, guys. They've got Oklahoma at home. They go to South Carolina the next week. Then they're at Mississippi State and home against Arkansas.
Right. Now, I guess you could say
that's 10-2 is 100% possible.
And I guess the flip side of it is Oklahoma's obviously caught the bad side of an SEC schedule this year, extremely tough, versus a Missouri team that they've played. Two of those, I guess you would consider upper echelon teams. I know that they beat Vanderbilt in a game that Vanderbilt really should have won in overtime or in regulation. Then Missouri won in overtime. But the two teams that they have played that have a little bit of a pulse, they just kind of got their ass kicked. I mean, Connor Wegman throwing all over them. Well, and it's hard to take that out of my brain. Now, it might be a little unfair to Missouri that was on an OU bye week and I was watching the game.
Yeah, it's just, for me, I think Missouri is exactly who a lot of us thought they were going to be, which is just a slightly above average team with a really easy schedule. Because you look at all the teams that they've played that are any good. Even the teams that they beat.
Even the Boston College game. That was a game that Boston College was up, I believe, double digits in the first half.
I mean, Boston College blew it. Boston College, Auburn, Vanderbilt are all games that could have easily gone the other way. And, I mean, Auburn got in their own... Auburn just every single week finds a new way to lose. But and then the two teams that they have played that are actually legitimately good football teams, or at least above average football teams, have kicked their shit in.
Yeah. It's an opportunity. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. It's just kind of a I don't know.
This is a game that here's the thing, Eddie and Josh. If Brent Venables is truly the guy at Oklahoma, and maybe this is an crazy statement to say, if he is truly the guy for Oklahoma going into the future, you have got to win this football game. This is a football game that you have got to go up and out-coach Eli Drinkowitz in Missouri and find a way. It doesn't matter how. You have to. It's like what we said in Auburn. You had to go win that game. They found a way. Now, Auburn handed it to them in a lot of ways, but you have got to go up to Missouri and win this football game if you're Brent.
Josh, I know that we talked about it on the game day preview, but Jackson Arnold, this is another big start for him, just as much as all three of these games are going to be going down the stretch. Brent made a note of it yesterday during his press conference. It was something that we talked about, George, on the practice report, but coming after being benched, or whatever you want to call it, Jackson's been better. He's completing 62.5% of his passes, 631 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. It's kind of fun to look at. I guess not fun, but it's kind of just, I guess, unique or kind of weird to look at his total numbers. And 12 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. If you would have just told me in a vacuum that that's where Jackson was going to be going into the 9th game of the season or the 10th game of the season, I would have thought, damn, he's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the touchdown numbers aren't where you expect, but you could live with that.
Well, and I saw you because I tweeted out the numbers, on Sunday, and
you think Brent just read off your tweet?
He might have, but it was funny because I had a lot of people who were like, "Well, Maine skews that number," and my argument would be, "Well, Temple skews the other number because he threw for 4 touchdowns in the opener against a terrible football team."
You know what's crazy too? And I was looking at Missouri's stats. Luther Burden, 4 touchdown receptions this year. Deion Burks, 3 touchdown receptions. I don't know. That's just
Deion
bizarre
Burks,
to me.
That's crazy too. If you look at the receiver stats, that OU only has 4 wide receivers over 100 yards receiving this year, only 3 over 200, and one of them's Deion Burks, who hasn't played since Tennessee.
Not good at all.
No.
What do you make of Jackson going into this game, Josh?
Guys, I mean, the thing that I noticed, and I kind of hang on to 2 plays when I think about this, is I feel like in the, as we got into Tulane and Tennessee early in the year, it was very much I can make plays with my feet, but I felt like he'd lost all faith in his ability to make a play with his arm, make a big play with his arm.
Sure.
And then I look at the throw to Jacob Jordan where he scrambles around, and of course he's creating that with his feet, but he has the confidence to make a seed of a throw to Jacob Jordan right there at the pylon. And then you come back a week later and he scrambles out of the pocket and hits J.J. Hester for that huge play. It seems like I felt like this all along, and I don't know if that, you guys felt the same, but I never felt like, he can't do this. It felt like he didn't think he could do it anymore. Like there was something, his confidence was just completely shaken. And as that has started to dissipate a little bit, I feel like he's starting to do things where you're like, yeah, that's the guy I saw in high school. This is the guy that was the 5-star and the, USA Today Player of the Year or Gatorade, whichever one it was. Like, this is a guy that's really doing something. And I just feel like every week you're watching his confidence just grow. And I wonder how much of that is, I say confidence. It feels like I don't know if Carrie's here to edit me, but the give a fuck has gone down. Like, I'm just going to go play football and whatever happens, happens.
It's kind of funny, like talking to him. And this is one of those things, like I often think, like, am I just kind of wrapped up or am I blinded by something that I want to believe? But talking to him on Tuesday night, I thought it was like kind of a big step for him to just put it out there, like almost, and he paraphrasing again, but he basically said, like, what's the worst that could happen? I've already been benched.
Yeah.
Like, F it. I'm going to just go play.
And I think what he said the other night, too, was really interesting when he was talking about Kevin Johns. And Kevin Johns, the way that he's basically just preached to all the quarterbacks, just get completions. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Throw completions. Throw to the open guy. Take what's given to you. And that's the biggest thing that I've noticed from Jackson. It doesn't feel, because it felt like at times, guys, early in the season against Houston when he threw the pick on the deep ball, or to Tulane where he's trying to make a play, it felt like a lot of times the offense was trying to force those explosive plays to just happen instead of letting them happen naturally. And he was letting go on a lot of deep balls that just weren't there. Guys weren't open. And now it feels
he's
like
trying to force things because I think it was kind of compounding on him just how bad they had started. It was like, oh my God, I have this big arm. I need to go make every play in the book, when in reality,
it's okay to dump it off to the running back. It's okay to throw the little under route to the tight end. Yeah, and you're seeing that these weeks, and it's opening up the bigger explosive plays now. And so that's the biggest thing I've noticed from Jackson. And he's a lot quicker in his decision making. I think he's sped up his process. I think Kevin Johns is also telling him, like, hey, you've got 1, 2, you gotta either throw it or get out of the pocket. And
anytime he talks about Kevin Johns here, as of the last 2 weeks or so,
it makes me think of what the hell.
It just like makes me want to strangle. I'm not sure either. Probably Kevin Johns, because I'd have a better chance of strangling him than I would Seth Luttrell. And I don't know, maybe Kevin Johns is a badass too. But it's just like, he said something to the effect on Tuesday night of Kevin Johns didn't want to step on anybody's toes in the quarterback's room. It's like, hey, this thing's not good right now. Step on some toes.
Yeah.
Maybe some toes needed to be stepped on. But even like some of the stuff that Jackson talked about, that he gets them together on Sunday nights and is like, this is the plan this week. This is what we're going to try to accomplish. It's kind of one of those moments of when Brent came in year one and he was talking about Deshaun White and Danny Stutzman not coming in for film on Sundays. Like, what the hell were they doing?
Yeah.
What kind of direction were they getting? And I think that like the uncomfortable answer is they weren't getting any direction from the quarterback position.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean Jackson's going to go out and just be phenomenal these last few weeks, but you can,
might.
It's clear though, you can see he's much more comfortable in what they're doing. And I think the RPO game, he's reading that a lot, but I think that they probably gave him some simpler read and react type things where it's like, hey, if the safety's here, you're handing it. If the safety's there, you're throwing it. And I think that's helped him a lot. And I think it's also helped that they've, been able to do some stuff in the run game. Like being able to run the football is huge. And so, I don't know.
I as well as they've been able to, and by all means, it's not great still, but a lot of what they've been able to accomplish in the pass game, I have to think is connected to what they've been able to at least not only put on tape, but been able to accomplish in the run game. And I think a lot of it is literally just guys believing in what they're doing again. And not to say that they didn't, but it's different when you go out and you're able to actually
I think it's also, Eddie, the message seems to be clearer than what it was previously.
That goes back to Tuesday and what Brent said during his press conference and the cohesion. And, if you want to read between what he was saying in between the lines, it's like everybody's kind of working on the same thing now. And everybody's on the same page. And, it kind of goes back to what you were talking about, Josh, with the offensive linemen and us just being so kind of befuddled about how do you get to the 6th or 7th game of the year and you don't know who you're blocking on what should be a very basic concept or a very basic scheme. It seems like they're at the very least have a plan and knowing what they're doing and trying to execute.
Everybody on that offense, guys, looks cleaner, looks crisper. Like I don't think there's anybody that could watch that and not be like, okay, look at South Carolina. Because you guys, obviously mistakes were made that weren't about design or play calling or anything like that. There were player-led errors. But it's also that comes from players having confidence, like these guys are going to put me in the best position to do what I need to do to. And I think that was really telling. George, you mentioned, Jackson Arnold's comments on Kevin Johns. That's how I heard it. Was like, I know that whatever I'm going to do here is the best option I can take. Like that, this is what I'm looking at. This is what I want to do. And if it's to dump off to the running back, that's what I'm going to do. And guys, it's something I know Gabe mentioned, on their podcast. That's something that's available against Missouri. Like you can work the flats against them. They're going to give you a little bit of short underneath, kind of in the same way that you see a lot of teams kind of try to attack the deep middle against Oklahoma. That seems to be the thing where Missouri says, hey, if you're willing to be patient and you want to work out there, you want to throw to Javonte Barnes or Taylor Tatum or whoever it may be at running back, there's some plays to be made there if OU can do it, and then they can get their backs to make a guy miss once they get out in space.
I'm back. I made it back. I'm saving you money, Josh. That's what I'm doing.
I love that. I don't know what this story is about, but I'm excited about it.
Daddy Don's back in the office. Everybody's saving money.
No, we've got our window guy here today that's helping us with our studio. We got to cut down on the light in the studio, so putting up basically like window tint on the windows.
Well, I just love it because hey, OU gets hot here. Just in time for the SEC championship game. The studio's going to be ready. We're ready.
That was our line of thinking as well.
That and the Final Four.
Well, and then you've got
obviously
Eddie's new political podcast getting ready to launch. So
it's going to be great. Can we talk about it yet?
Let's not. I don't think Bob Stoops wants us to say yet.
All right. It's me and Bob and Ryan Walters. It's going to be great.
And with Mike Gundy, he's going to zoom in every week from Stillwater.
Oh, he might. They're not going to be preparing for a bowl game, so he might be able to be here for the December episode.
Get him in studio. Gotcha. By the way,
we're going to do brains it. so we have Oklahoma Ryan Walters, which of course we know.
I guess
and then
they voted
Purdue
down
head coach Ryan Walters.
Ooh. Yeah, Purdue.
And
they're a real good football
team. It grinds
team.
my gears sometimes. I can't remember who we're talking about.
I guess there was
one's black, one's white.
That's a good way to.
I don't see color, as we established. Trace Ford and Ethan Downs.
That's true.
So
that's true. That's true.
Are you gonna give Ryan Walters a grade in next week's grading?
Maybe I'll have to. Maybe that's exactly what I need to do. That seems to be the perfect fit for me.
It's too bad that Layla is getting older too, because I think that she could have been a great baby Jesus in our live nativity scene that we're going to put in front of the Scoop offices during the holiday season.
Josh, when's the last time that you got the girls something for Christmas at Academy?
We actually were at Academy this week. I bought Tiffany a gift at Academy, so that's
Is that where you get all the bounce houses?
No, it'll surprise people. I guarantee anybody that knows Tiffany's gonna be surprised to hear this. She got herself a Carhartt sweatshirt that she's very excited about.
Oh, very nice.
Like pink. It's not what I would like. If you didn't tell me it was Carhartt, I would never have known. But it's really soft. She's quite excited about it.
Well, the holiday season is here, and it's the start of something fun. It's a season centered on when to shop, when to wrap, when to open presents. But at Academy Sports and Outdoors, it's all about where, because the best holiday fun happens out there, kind of outside, out these walls of the Sooner Scoop studios, on the driveway with a new basketball hoop, or, throw around the football if you want, like we do here at the offices. New basketball hoop out back around the fire pit or up in the deer stand. That's where you'll find Skip Johnson most of the time, I think.
After today, yes.
However you shop, no matter your fun, we've got it. The right stuff at the right price, in-store and online. In-store and online at academy.com. Have fun out there. Thanks to Academy for being a big part of all of our podcasts. So appreciate their support. I'm marking that awful burp so I can get rid of it. All right, recruiting-wise, man, I got the hiccups. That's what's happening. Recruiting-wise, Josh, great recruiting report. People need to go watch that if they haven't seen it so far this week. A lot of new footage. You had everything basically that was in the news except for Michael Fasusi, which Steve Sarkisian flew out in his helicopter.
We talked about that
on Friday.
Was that the very
I'm saying footage-wise.
Oh,
we didn't have
I see what
his game footage.
Yeah.
Everybody else pretty much.
Josh
we
is
talked
going to
about.
see him
did
this week, I believe.
But a lot of Owasso kids in the recruiting report, and
Mason James going off. I did not realize it was over 225. I think 225 plus. Touchdowns.
I saw Elijah Thomas posting his highlights on Twitter, so he must have felt pretty good about his game last week.
He just put out his weekly. This is what I did this weekend. And
this is how I kicked everybody's ass.
Yeah.
But Josh,
these are the poor kids that I killed.
Josh is. Let me ask this, because we talked about it earlier in the pod, and I left, and I hate to know how many F-bombs I've missed that I'm going to have to.
Just one.
Okay. But let's say OU gets a win against Missouri this weekend. Do they maybe try and put some heat on some guys to come in for a final visit for Alabama?
Oh, absolutely. That's going to be I would say Tennessee was obviously huge, and Oklahoma had more momentum, so it was easier to make that a big weekend. But for what Oklahoma, the kind of situation that they're in with their, I guess hoping to make a bowl scenario, it's a really good weekend with some of the names that they are expecting. Included among that is the guy we were just talking about, Michael Fasusi. That's obviously big for Oklahoma to get him back on campus. Hopefully that game goes well. And again, I don't think Michael Fasusi is going to go up there and be like, well, I'm out in Oklahoma. If OU goes out and, loses 28-17 or something to Alabama and plays a respectable football game. Now you go and get bombed. Okay. That can change the music a little bit. But again, you look at it, Deuce Gerald's is supposed to be there. There are like Crew Jones, the big defensive end from Utah, is supposed to be there. Zane Rowe will be back up. One of the interesting guys that we haven't talked a lot about is Caden Henderson, the linebacker from Florida that camped this summer, that was just so stinking impressive. It's a 2027 guy. He's supposed to be there at the Alabama weekend. So, and obviously, once this game ends, Oklahoma has a couple of weeks to really build. They'll be out on the road that November 16th weekend, going to see a lot of guys at games, trying to kind of secure those visits. So I think you will see a lot of activity. There's even the possibility of Caleb Burns, the linebacker from Houston, the offer that's committed to Baylor. There's a chance he comes up for his official visit. That's long been scheduled. Now, I will fully acknowledge Caleb has gone pretty quiet, and I don't love that vibe. I think there's something pretty telling in that. But it's still there. I mean, like, that still could happen, and if he does, hey, crazier things have happened. So, again, Alabama's going to be the last big hurrah, obviously, because it's the last home game. So it actually sets up pretty well for Oklahoma, especially, like you said, Kerry, if Oklahoma can have some momentum going into that weekend where they've got to win, they're going to be bowl eligible. They can tell themselves, hey, they've got a chance against Alabama. Go play, see what happens, that kind of thing.
Do they drag Fasusi to Norman in that case?
Yes, I think maybe that would be the case. Ryan Foje would be, coming up from Houston, and just on his way up, he would be commanded to find a way to get Michael Fasusi into the car. So
that'd be a big car.
That's a big car. As a guy who once sat next to Marvin Wilson on a plane, that's you don't understand how big those guys are until you have to sit next to them in a tight seat.
I forgot about that story.
I think that'd be a great crowd too. Like, the crowd would be like, if they go beat Missouri and then you have a bye week where you're feeling good about yourself.
It's a renaissance. Now,
it might not be Tennessee good, but it might be close.
I think it's going to be close.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be close. And
if they win,
it's one of those games that a lot like the turnout for like the Ole Miss game for Oklahoma fans. I think it's just kind of one of those. While it's not a destination in terms of going to Oxford or a place that they haven't been, that's a weekend that I'm pretty sure that even like in my group of friends, people are coming back regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be a lot different than it was for the main weekend.
You said it as the pod
walking
started.
back on Campus Corner, and it's just like, oh, this feels like a Tuesday.
You said it at the beginning of the pod, but the gravity of this game against Missouri just continues to grow.
It's huge, and it will only grow even more. George and I were talking like the 6:45 start on Saturdays. We've been so used to the 11 a.m. and the afternoon games here as of late that it's going to take a while to get to kick off on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a good thing it's a bye week.
Coming up afterwards.
Yeah.
I love the 2 bye weeks.
It's weird.
I do too.
I could do that every year.
I mean,
is that not gonna? I thought that was gonna be a thing. Is that just I think it's just wild outlier? I guess I missed that.
I think it's just this year. I don't know though.
I love it. I'm with you, George. I think it's great. And guys, I know I teased this against Tennessee, but to only make the Missouri game bigger, if Oklahoma wins this game, there is a chance I'll be in Norman for this game. So we'll see.
Wow.
For the Bama game.
Mm-hmm. I know the stakes just getting larger. Josh McCuistion might be in attendance.
Josh McCuistion might just be drinking on Campus Corner, like on game day. Like that'd be awesome.
Also possible.
I think too. I know that we're going to have 2 weeks to talk about this, but if Alabama were to take care of business this weekend, and maybe even if they don't, if OU wins, I think the game's going to be a night game. Yeah. I think the OU Alabama game's going to be in the late window, I guess. I know it's already
I would think so. I think it'd be the ESPN window, late game.
Yeah, 6:30 or 6:30.
I don't know
ABC.
what else is that weekend.
There's not a lot.
Not much.
Eddie and I looked it up the other day.
I think Tennessee, Georgia. Oh no, that's next weekend during the bye week. That's the only game that's really on the schedule. So
we don't have a great schedule on the bye week.
Not really. No.
You've got Kentucky at Texas, A&M at Auburn, Vandy at LSU, Missouri at Mississippi State. Yeah, I mean, if Oklahoma handles business, that almost the only other. Well, I mean, they've already signed Ole Miss at Florida. That's an 11 a.m. So I think it would 100% be Oklahoma.
All right. Anything else, Josh, recruiting wise, that you're keeping an eye on? I mean, I know everybody's throwing out flip season, like it's and with NIL and stuff, we haven't seen as much of that stuff. I mean, that's going to be the interesting thing about Oklahoma is, they beat Missouri. Obviously, it takes a lot of those immediate concerns away. But even with a team having a down year, with so many commitments that are made before a kid ever really signs anything.
I don't know if this is a good thing, but Brent Venables and his staff, I guess, you got to give the credit to the entire staff. They've been pretty good about having disappointing seasons, but still being able to sell the program And I go all the way back to year one and the way that they were able to keep that recruiting class together. I guess you just kind of hope, obviously you hope that the improvements are made on the field, but it seems like they've checked a lot of boxes just in terms of what they've been able to do in keeping this class together, even through the current level of, whatever chaos or whatever you want to call it on the field.
Yeah, guys, honestly,
how many times do you think that like an offensive coordinator gets fired 7 games in and they haven't had a single decommitment on that side of the ball? That's somewhat impressive to me.
That every time I check around, I wait to hear a guy that's like, oh, he doesn't sound right. And then they don't. Like, it's really pretty steady. Now, again, if I'm playing the odds, probably someone ends up defecting. That's probably just going to happen. And I don't know that it would even be untrue if everything had gone well and Seth Luttrell had stayed. Like, there's been rumors about a couple. I mean, we know Cortez Mills came really close to not being part of things. You go down the list. So mathematically, that's just probably going to happen. But, I don't see it from a perspective of this guy has a problem. This guy's on his way out the door. I just don't really see that from anybody I've talked to. Now, I did want to say, I know we mentioned it on the recruiting report. Obviously, probably the biggest news over the weekend and from a recruiting standpoint was Cash Jacobsen, the Jenks defensive lineman, getting his offer.
Dude, he looks so good. I mean, that video, you have to go watch that video. I'm shocked that a kid that good is just sitting in the state borders.
From a really, really good program, too. You don't usually see that.
Well, like I said, I think it's guys kind of like what you were just talking about earlier, where you have all these guys committing so early and all these schools have committed so much of their NIL fund and all the, all these things that kind of tie their hands as far as who they can go recruit. Well, then you get a guy like Cash Jacobsen who missed his entire sophomore year because of an injury. As a junior, he wasn't himself. He was, again, a guy coming off an injury and didn't look right. And now all of a sudden as a senior, you're like, oh, he's killing people. And so I think that is part of the situation here is where schools aren't maybe, beating the bushes, so to speak, the way they used to go look for these kind of guys and look for the late senior bloomer, the Jeremy Beal and all these guys that we know from years past. So I do think that plays a part, but when I watch him on tape, guys, I don't see a guy that I'm like, well, this guy's just a body for Oklahoma. I'm like, that guy could be a good player and given enough time and let him develop.
Yeah, I don't think at this point that you need to take a lot of projects, or not projects, but potential guys. I mean, the big thing with this program to me right now is they need to build potential NFL depth, like guys that might get drafted 4th, 5th, 6th round, but be backups, because that's what you're seeing at other teams in the SEC. And that's on offense. Clearly, OU doesn't have that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
By the way, I had this question today.
With on offense. Oh, go ahead.
I had this question today, and I don't know why it's coming. I think it's because Eli Bowen is playing so well. Is Peyton Bowen? This was my explanation. You think his time is limited just because Robert Spears Jennings is playing so well?
No, I think he's hurt.
He's hurt.
Look fine on that punt return.
I don't know. I know
he got up and was limping.
Yeah, he's kind of nicked up. I think it's also, though, that Robert Spears Jennings is playing very well, and Billy Bowman you're not going to take out of the game.
I think both can be true, that he's a little nicked up.
Well, the other thing that
Robert
I thought
Spears
was
Jennings playing really well.
Clearly, they're still not 100% solid on Cheetah outside of when they have Deshaun McCullough in there for what he does in certain situations, but I would think that Peyton Bowen, I mean, wasn't he the guy that was working at 5 positions as a true freshman? Eventually, do they turn to him to see if he's the answer?
I mean, maybe. I
know Billy's going to be gone. I mean, but still.
Maybe next year, something that you look at closer during the spring. But, just hearing Deshaun talk and the Xavier Brewer thing was, I think that's kind of an interesting, fun note on the defensive side of the ball and what he talked about how, basically Xavier Brewer went straight from playing Cheetah to come in and helping Brent coach Cheetah.
And I think Deshaun's played pretty well. And I thought it was interesting yesterday when Deshaun was talking, Eddie, and said that he felt like last year they were playing him more as like a coverage guy.
Yeah.
And this year they're playing more to his skill set and letting him go rush the passer or, be a tackler in the run game. Like, it feels like they're playing more to his skill set. The problem for Oklahoma with that position right now is they're tipping their hand a little bit by who's out there personnel-wise.
Right. That was the first thing that I thought when he was talking about that. Was like, okay, well, Deshaun's out there. Run something for the guy that he's guarding.
Right.
Basically.
He probably isn't going to drop in coverage if he's out there, at least not in a way that like Woody Washington would. Whereas when Woody comes in, it's like it's clear that they are playing for the pass here. They're not bringing Woody Washington on some sort of blitz where Kendall Dolby, you never knew what he was going to do.
He could play both run and pass.
Right, and that's why I'm interested to see if
I think they thought Omasigo would be that guy, but he hasn't been.
No, and I think he may have got a little banged up, and I think he's healthy now, but I think that maybe when Deshaun came back and Sammy was a little hurt, that Deshaun just kind of took over, so now it's been Deshaun and Woody mostly, but also wouldn't be sure. I mean, like I said, they played Jaden Hardy some. I couldn't tell if they were playing him at Cheetah. I went back and rewatched the game. If they were playing him at Cheetah or if they were having that 3 safety high look and Jaden was just kind of walking up, playing press coverage, but I wouldn't be shocked either if you see one of those 3 freshmen get in there and play some Cheetah too. Just because they're all 3 of those guys are just so dynamic.
All right, that was just something I wanted to hit on before we got out of here because people had asked me about it. And Josh, any final words before? Basically, I think, you're kind of out of the picture until game time, other than on the site.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie mentioned I'm going to see Michael Fasusi on Thursday night. I'm going to go see Jonathan Hatton and Eli Johnson and Cibolo Steele. So kind of all over the state of Texas on this weekend.
Cibolo still has
see a couple of big time OU commits.
Yeah, Jonathan
Hatton. It's just a monster.
Yeah.
Anxious to see him, and I think he's kind of been fighting off an ankle, but I think they've, this being the last week of the regular season in Texas, they're going to warm him up a little bit and get him ready because obviously Steele is one of those teams that expects to make a deep run every year.
Josh, just real quick, completely out of pocket, who's the best team in Texas? Is it still North Shore? Is it Duncanville? Regardless of class.
Yeah, I think it's Duncanville.
Okay.
Now, and I will say, guys, one of the real surprises for me this year was when Atascocita had North Shore on the ropes. Like they had them. Atascocita might make the state finals. Now, I don't know if anybody's beaten Duncanville. But Atascocita is really, really good. And the thing to remember, they didn't have Torrey Blaylock in that game. Like Torrey Blaylock barely played against North Shore, and North Shore had to score with like 30 seconds left to beat them.
It's crazy. We were watching, I guess, FanDuel Sports. I was going to say Bally, but Fox Sports Southwest for the OGs. They were doing something on Duncanville a couple days ago, and we were watching the package that they were putting together. It's like, I think that Coach Sample is going to be all right this year. It was from like early in August. And they're just such a powerhouse. It's unbelievable.
Well, because it's the first time, like usually Duncanville's like they've got guys like Caden Durham and they've got all these great skill guys,
they got the quarterback,
incredible defense. Well, now they've got a quarterback, and you're like, well, that's not fair. Like that's insane. So you give them a guy like that. Obviously, Keelan Russell going to Alabama. I can't remember if he won. I think he won the Elite 11 MVP, if I remember right. Like I know he was one of the better guys there, but I think he won it. And I mean, it's crazy the talent they're putting out there, and then him throwing it to Corian Moore. It's crazy.
He did win the Elite 11 too.
I thought that was right, but I just doubted myself there.
Any college football games you guys are looking forward to this weekend?
I mean, I'm intrigued to see what happens with the 2 big ones in the SEC. I mean, I'm kind of optimistic. Not optimistic. I'm intrigued to think that maybe Ole Miss can put something together and give Georgia a little bit of a game. Georgia's had such a weird year. They certainly don't look like that dominant program. Then all of a sudden, they still continue to win football games. I think Ole Miss can. I don't know. Like I'm kind of jaded now with my opinion of Ole Miss after being down there and just seeing the atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. It's not like you can just bank on like, oh, okay, Ole Miss is going to build a 2-touchdown lead and then the crowd's going to keep them in the game, or keep them out of the game. And then obviously the Alabama LSU game that will be going on at the same time as OU Missouri. It's an elimination game.
Yeah. I like Alabama in that game. I think LSU just I also am just still a believer in Alabama. Like I like Jalen Milroe. I think that they're starting to find some success on defense. I just think they're the better team. And then I like Georgia. I think Ole Miss has a lot of really good talent, and I really like Jackson Dart. They just are a very undisciplined football team, and it feels like in this type of a game,
can't be.
Like you just cannot make those mistakes. And Lane Kiffin also just hasn't really shown that he can win the big one when it comes to that. So I also just think Georgia's the best team in the country. I think they're going to win the national championship. But I think there's some other Michigan at Indiana. Does that intrigue you at all? Indiana hasn't really played anybody.
Not
I don't think
really.
I don't think Michigan's very good either. But.
Not really, but because of the way that you say that, and Indiana really, truly not having played a whole lot of people on their schedule, it at least goes, okay, it's a logo at least that you're going to go beat or get beat by. I thought Michigan kind of held around with Oregon a little bit later than anticipated. I know the 21-point final decision wasn't kind of indicative of how close that game was there in the fourth quarter with Michigan trying to get off the field just down by a touchdown. I don't know. It's still a little insane to me, everything that's happening inside the Big 12 right now. You look into this week, and one of the biggest games in college football is in Lubbock with Colorado. Like, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Josh, just in terms of the college football playoff stuff, I've kind of come with the blanket statement of I really don't care about the college football playoff projections right now. There's a lot of football to be played. Did you have any concerns or criticisms with the committee's decision on Tuesday night?
Well, I'm one of those people, like, I'm more of a power rankings person. So, like, I know people are all pissed off about Indiana or whatever. And I'm like, do I really think Indiana is a better team than Texas? No, I just don't.
Exactly.
Like, I'm sorry if that pisses you off. I don't think they're a better team. And I don't think beating a horrible schedule is more important than Texas collecting some of the good wins they've got. Now, Michigan, Oklahoma are not the wins that everybody thought they were going to be, but you'll not convince me that Texas hasn't played a better schedule than Indiana has. I just believe that. But at the same time, I think this weekend is really interesting for that exact conversation where you're talking about Michigan going to Indiana. We just saw Michigan against Oregon. We know Michigan's played Texas. So there's a lot of common opponent stuff there that I think is kind of interesting. And if Indiana goes and just destroys Michigan, okay. Like, now, like, you're having a very real conversation, and it sets up that week of, I believe is it the next week is when Ohio State and Indiana goes down.
Yeah.
That could be an incredible game. Just amazing storylines. I guess it's 2 weeks. It's the 23rd. It'll be the Alabama weekend would be the same, I believe, for Ohio State and Indiana. But either way, like, it's just, to me, that sets the stage. Like, Indiana needs to go out and handle business one more time, and then you just go play. And I think if they play Ohio State tough, and I'm talking like 34-24, if they don't lose again, they're in the playoff. Like, they should be anyway.
I just don't like just real quickly, and we'll wrap up, but there just seems to be a lot of Big Ten respect going on right now. And I now I sound like such an SEC biased homer, but
here we go.
I just don't. I think Oregon's really good. I'm not a big believer in Ohio State, and I'm certainly not a believer in Penn State. Like, some of the teams ranked behind Penn State, I'm like, I would pick Tennessee to beat Penn State. I would pick Alabama to beat Penn State. Like, there's several teams that I'm like, I would pick those teams. I would pick Ole Miss to beat Penn State, LSU. And again, that sounds so like SEC bias. Now, some of those games would probably be very close, but I'm just not a believer in the Big Ten. I'm also not a believer in Miami. Just
sure.
Yet. So,
all right, I think that should do it. We'll just close this thing out here as Carrie's back getting our window tinting in. Hopefully it doesn't affect our nativity scene. I'll be really upset if that is to be the case. But we'll be back on Thursday for the game day preview on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. We'll be checking back in with Josh. I'm sure, Josh, if you want to stay up on Saturday night, we'll probably do the Eskridge Lexus postgame podcast at about 3 a.m. Central is, I think, what we're expected to be with the 6:45 kickoff in Columbia, Missouri. But tremendous opportunity for Oklahoma coming up this week, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see how they handle this moving forward, because I do think that it is ultimately very, very important that they get to 6-4 going into the bye week, and then Alabama and LSU to close out the regular season, which I guess is kind of sad in a way that we spend all this damn time waiting for the season to start, and then we get so disgruntled with the way OU's playing and hope that it's over, and then you blink and it is going to be over. So that should do it for this week's Unofficial 40. Josh, we appreciate it. George, thank you for showing up for work, and thank you to myself for being great. We'll talk to you next time.